I believe vocabulary is such a great tool for students to be learning and using. When I was in elementary school, we worked on questions that went with our story that we were reading, like our novel that we were reading. And also we had vocabulary words that we had either had to be done like the first 2 weeks of like the novel starting, or it was by the end of the time the novel was finished. These vocabulary words needed to be done. You had to have the definition, you had to have the part of speech, and you had to use it in a sentence. Using that tool helped us understand what the text was actually meaning and what this novel was getting across by knowing these words that we didn't know and looking them up, using them in a sentence, helped us understand the story better, and also added words to our vocabulary that was going to help better us off later in our future and be able to understand the terms for a later time. And it was the same thing like in middle school and high school. We had comprehension questions and we had vocabulary. Those were like a requirement for us to be able to learn in reading or English class or language arts class. That was a requirement. But I've noticed that like when I was in my 4th grade class for my internship, they didn't have vocabulary words. They didn't have spelling words. Compared to what we had when I was growing up. So like you have these kids that are not spelling because right. They're not spelling friend right. They're not spelling basic words that they should know how to spell correctly. Or not, like they can read, but they don't understand what they're reading because they're not getting vocabulary. They're not getting comprehension questions. If they are reading the novel, they do get comprehension questions, but where's the vocabulary terms in those? Vocabulary is so helpful. And according to our textbook, for all educators working in improved reading achievement, teaching reading source book, by Bill Hongen and Lyndon Diamond and Linda Gutchelon, on page 420 of chapter 11, basic word instructions. Explicit instructions have proven to be an effective way for students to acquire vocabulary knowledge. National Reading Manual 2000. Direct teaching of specific vocabulary words relevant to a given text can deepen students' knowledge of word meanings. The goal is to enable students to use the instructed words in understanding the text containing those words and to recall the words well enough to use them in speech and writing. I'm saying it right in my head, but it's not coming out. Words can be directly introduced through teachers' read-alongs or through independent reading. Read text. So, I think no matter how old the student is, depending on what grade it is, they should always have spelling tests. From kindergarten up to middle school, they should have spelling tests. Even high schoolers have spelling tests because they have these new words that they are expected to use, but they don't use them because they don't know what they mean and they don't know how to spell them, or they don't know how to use them correctly. And then using those spelling words into the novel that we are reading, and having those words that are in a novel for reading, have them look up the part of like if for the older grades, they should be expected to look up the word part of speech, write down the definition, and then put it in a sentence. For the younger side of elementary, they should look up the word, because I remember in 3rd grade, we had to look up words for our vocabulary when we were reading novels in the classroom. We were expected to look up a word and write the definition down to help us understand what we were learning and help the word stick with us. I think that's the best option to help students learn more words and develop independency and vocabulary and acquisition. That's so important to me as a teacher that needs to get back into group with with school now. I'm not saying that it's not happening. You're not doing it if you are a teacher in your own classroom. You're not doing it. But like, we have other schools that don't have writing or reading curriculums yet. They follow what the state mandates, but they don't have a curriculum that they have to follow. They have to make up their own. At least that's where the school I was at. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all.